So this video is going to go into the complicit nature of the New Age community and the various traps that are within this woke consciousness and this New Age consciousness. So what I've been saying on this channel is the next versions of mind control are under the guise of the expansion of consciousness. Once you expand your consciousness, you can entertain the idea of expanding your physical consciousness. And in expanding your physical consciousness, the trap that's set out there for the individuals on a mass scale is the idea of transhumanism. So this is why you have Elon Musk in these circles of futurism talking about putting a neural net, some kind of technological platform inside your brain. Since Western science has no real connection to the depths of consciousness and spirituality, what they're using to sell to the people in order to maintain control over the long term is the worshiping of modern technology. Part of the dumbing down of the people is to, in a sense, dumb up the belief in technology being more evolved than the human technology. This is not to put the human technology on a pedestal, only to acknowledge the ancestral breaking downs of what this human technology is and was. When people have been dumbed down so much with the mainstream media and the public education system, they need something to lean on, and technology is that something to lean on. This creates a codependency on technology, which in a sense puts a codependency on the individuals who are controlling of that technology. The individuals who are controlling that technology are run by systems of people who have been running society for centuries upon centuries. It's the same control grid. And the New Age community is channeling the mass consciousness right into the hands of these mind controllers under the guise of expanding consciousness. They're doing the work for them. YouTube channels are doing the work for the mind controllers. The reason why Russell Brand, or one of the main reasons why Russell Brand is used, is because he has a history of addiction, and one of the biggest problems that the mass consciousness is dealing with right now is the sickness of addiction in various ways. There's all kinds of addictions out there. One of the biggest ones out there is food. One of the biggest ones out there right now in modern times is technology. You see how even kids can't even put their phones down. There's psychological effects. There's effects on the memory. There's effects on the psychology. There's effects on the relationships of the masses. All of the dumbing down of these relationships creates a codependency on the system and expands the disease of addiction. In dumbing down the masses with these issues, you're going to have the people who are still looking to grow and expand themselves in some kind of way. This is why you have the woke movement out there, and various woke movements. Even Black Lives Matter is considered a woke movement out there. But the main one is the New Age community out there. So you have Russell Brand promoting people like Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Sadhguru, Oprah, and all these other individuals out there who are definitely in the circles of the government officials and the people who are dealing in these deep, dark circles of everything from child sex trafficking and mind control, racism, white supremacy, transhumanism. The list goes on and on and on of the programs that are designed to maintain addiction, control, and codependency, and so on and so forth. Back to the reason why they use Russell Brand. Russell Brand's journey into his wokeness comes from a foundation of addiction. The reason why he's used and why addiction is being used is because the next level of mind control is to get people on a massive scale addicted to consciousness, addicted to the idea of expanding their consciousness. This is what happens when you enter into the New Age community and you have these individuals who don't have anywhere to plant their roots because they have entered into this idea, this new idea of themselves, this new age of themselves, the new individual. They have become new people renaming themselves, people dropping all kinds of connections to who and what they are on a physical, ancestral scale and adopting these extraterrestrial versions of themselves, all based on theoretical observation and feelings overall. Like a lot of it is just emotion based, and a lot of it works on an emotional scale because keeping people on an emotional scale is the same vibration as keeping people in the ego, which is the same vibration as keeping people in the space of codependency. This all connects into the vast web of narcissism, which is a part of the addiction programming that's out there. When you have people who are unaware of their narcissism, it makes it easier to download the programs unconsciously that add up to mind control programs that will happen later on down the line. Mind control programs that will be installed into the future generations of these individuals. They need individuals, and on a massive scale, the masses, to buy into whatever it is that they're selling. So like I said, these individuals who are writing books, who are selling a certain mode of observation in relation to expanding your consciousness, whether it's meditation, transcendental meditation, whether it's some individuals are all about certain healing medicines. So you have ayahuasca, and then you have people who have been taking ayahuasca for years and they get into that mode of expanding their consciousness. Yes, is it healing these people? Yes, to a certain degree, but you will only have people healing as far as they are ready to heal themselves. So a medicine like ayahuasca will only heal the individual as far as they're ready to go. It's not a fix-all. It will only expand to the level of consciousness that the individual is ready to expand to. It's not going to jump these individuals into this deep scale of consciousness simply because it opens the door. You have to walk through that door. And individuals who are walking through those doors are still seeing whatever is through those doorways through their own eyes. And those eyes are still clouded by all the bullshit that they haven't done yet. Once you have people, this is the benefit to people being thrusted into the woke consciousness, new age community, because once you get in there, into that space, you have individuals who are going to create other versions of disease and sickness. They're going to create other versions of separation because they're in a world where they are ill-equipped to deal with that world. So what they do is they use tools to make it seem like they're part of that world and dealing with that world, when in reality they're actually covering up the downfalls that they haven't dealt with in that world and all of the things that they haven't dealt with personally. So what they're doing is they're creating this fake version. This is why you have the fake woke community out there, is because it's become an identity. It hasn't become a movement, like an internal movement. It's become an egotistical version of who and what people are. And once people get in that space of utilizing these tools, utilizing these medicines, utilizing these perspectives like a prescription drug, they become addicted to those prescription drugs. This is of a benefit, like I said earlier, this is of a benefit to the system because now the system can provide people with those prescription drugs so they can further their addictions. These individuals like Russell Brand, Eckhart Tolle, all the people on the Super Soul Sunday with Oprah and all that other stuff, these are the prescription drugs of the New Age agenda. So now the system has, in a sense, controlled the evolution of consciousness through the individuals who are saying that they are understanding and, in a sense, expanding the consciousness themselves. Like, for example, Russell Brand, who escaped addiction, escaped Hollywood. Now he's raising a family and he's not addicted anymore. And he's speaking with all these higher thinking expanded consciousness individuals, people are supposed to follow him now. And like I said earlier, whatever that individual or these individuals are speaking on, people are only going to get a fraction of that information. And what they're not speaking on, these individuals, these masses of people, are going to create some kind of way to understand and overstand why they themselves shouldn't focus on that information. So you have masses of people who are hearing teachings about racism, white supremacy, and those same teachers talking about consciousness at the same time. These individuals will completely they will find ways to disregard the information from these teachers simply because other teachers don't address that information. That's a form of gaslighting. That's a form of psychological abuse. This is the part of the psychological abuse that I was talking about with being addicted to consciousness. The same way when you take a drug away from a drug addict, what's happening? They're going to lose their shit. They're going to lash out. So when you're talking to people and you share a perspective that counteracts or internally for them counteracts their mode of consciousness, they will lash out at you. They will deflect. They will demonize you, so on and so forth. And this is what's happening with the separation of various groups of wokeness and consciousness expansion and all this other stuff that's out there. You have the Black conscious community. This is why you have a Black conscious community. Why isn't there just a conscious community? Just analyze that for a second. Why? Because there's a white conscious community out there. This is at the core of what I'm talking about in relation to the information. People see that there's a Black conscious community, but really don't analyze what's going on within the white conscious community. What are they talking about in the white conscious community? There's many people who watch this channel know what's going on in the Black conscious community, because on this channel I share a lot of the teachings from those teachers, because the information of the so-called white conscious community actively and consciously avoids that information, because that information challenges what's going on in the so-called white conscious community, because that information in the so-called white conscious community is being used for ulterior motives. And that motive is at the core of why I'm doing this video right now, talking about the addiction to consciousness and the consciousness traps that are abundant out there. Addiction is being used in the expansion of consciousness mind control trap because they already have the system of the 12-step program out there. Russell Brand uses this system, and many people who haven't even entered into the world of the new age and consciousness and so on and so forth, a lot of them have already dealt with the 12-step program, so they can understand it. So there's already a soft platform for people to base their movement on, personal and mass movements. When you go into the new age community, one of the biggest things that's very dangerous there is that the new age community, like I said before, it's building on the previous mind controls. It's also building on those previous mind controls, it's building on the historical mind controls that are out there. The new age isn't really saying much about the psychopathic nature of believing that you discovered a country, the psychopathic nature of genociding an entire people around the world. There's no addressing any of that information. It's just an accepting of this as being something of the past, and you just needing to expand your consciousness and moving forward. But what happens when you move forward and build on a broken foundation? That foundation is eventually going to fall again, which is beneficial to the system, because once you fall, you're going to have to depend on somebody else again, and that somebody else is the system, which is why the new age fluffy version of walking into your expanded consciousness with all these cracked individuals, it's beneficial for them to walk into expanding their consciousness on a cracked foundation, because once that foundation falls and implodes on itself, these individuals and these masses of people will have nothing to do but to lean on the system which they leaned on before. And if the system that they have been leaning on and have leaned on before is appearing to expand its consciousness, this is why you have people like Bernie Sanders out there and Yang and all these people talking about universal health care and all this other stuff. These are doggy treats. These are concessions for all the crimes that these systems have been doing for centuries. And since people have been eating doggy treats for so long, they will take any concessions that are given by the masses, by the system itself, and actually celebrate it and defend it against people who are shining a light on how this is exactly what it is, a concession, a doggy treat. So back to the psychopathic nature of that's within New Age. It's a deep disease to accept this system the way it is. They are teaching this psychopathic historical observation to your children, to your future generations. This is on purpose. None of this stuff is being addressed by the New Age. They don't care about this. It's just the New Age is designed to push things to the side and just hope your way into the future. A big part of the reason why the so-called conscious and New Age community doesn't go into the psychopathic nature of historical books and historical beliefs is, like I said before, it goes into the story of the First Nation people, the Aboriginal peoples. These New Agers don't want to lose. A lot of these New Age people are very well off. They have a lot of money, and consciousness is a new thing like yoga to them. So they only want to go so far. They don't want to go into the depths of what yoga truly is. They want to create their own version of what yoga is because it only goes so far. They don't really want to deal with the living conditions of the individuals who brought them ayahuasca. They only want to play in the world, in the playland of the expanding of consciousness that is going into a relationship with ayahuasca. So these people will take trips down to Peru, in many cases bring ayahuasca back to the States, but go, and in many cases just go down to Peru, play around in the medicine, do whatever it is that they think that they're doing to expand their consciousness, and completely avoid the systems that are leading to the demise of the individuals who brought them that medicine. They don't even care about the shaman that are down there having their rainforest clear cut by the country that they're going back to. They don't care about that. They will avoid it. This is why I'm saying the New Age is inherently sick. It's borderline psychopathic, the same way these historical observations of reality are not borderline, but definitely psychopathic. Then you have the algorithms of the system that are existing in YouTube and on the mainstream media that are going to add to that psychopathic perspective and elevate these New Age teachers, elevate these so-called conscious and woke leaders as a means to hide and censor all of the other perspectives that challenge their belief systems, their New Age belief systems. So just as the algorithms of YouTube have evolved to create this tunnel vision for the masses, you can see the algorithms of the mainstream thought process and the conscious New Age woke community has also evolved. And they're evolving together to work together towards a particular outcome. So just like the statues in Egypt, consciousness has, in a sense, had its nose chopped off. You don't really know the true story. You only know the story that has been written by Egyptologists. You don't know the story that exists inside the blood of the people. We're unaware of that. Why? Because that threatens the nature, the consciousness of the individuals who chopped those noses off. These spiritual teachings have been repurposed. They've been downsized. They've been manipulated in order to promote a certain version of reality. Racism is in the church. Racism is in these so-called spiritual books. And then you have New Age teachings. You have people in religious communities who don't even address that stuff. In fact, they're gaslighting you by telling you something's wrong with you for even bringing that up. They're gaslighting you by telling you that you're acting in reverse racism because you're still on the racist kick. Just because the system is using racism as another version of mind control, as a deeper layer of controlling the masses, doesn't mean that racism is off the discussion block. No, part of the reason why they're using racism in the mainstream media is because they know individuals will completely take it off of the discussion block. They know what the midstream consciousness will do with that. And it's exactly what they're doing. They're saying, oh, well, you're just falling for the mainstream mind control programming by talking about racism. This is just division. We're talking about unity and coming together and addressing, these criminals that are in, all these systems and all this other stuff. It's emotion based. It's ego based. It's not based in any research. It's not based on any ancestral observations or intelligence. It's just based on feeling. This is why people on YouTube can be seen as teachers when they're really just intelligent egos who have the gift of gab. And they could just talk and talk and talk, and in any moment they can mute you. They can turn you off. So when you bring up racism to these so-called woke communities, they say, oh, it's not about racism. It's not about the mainstream media is using it to control you. You're wrong. Something's wrong with you. Okay, well, obviously, I'm not saying it's all about racism. But what about the part that is about racism? What about the books have been written? What about the psychological effects on the masses of people around the world? Not only in the United States, but around the world. Individuals who are bleaching their skin because they're trying to look a certain way. They're trying to feel a certain way. They're trying to appear to other people a certain way. They're trying to attract certain people. Where's the consciousness in that? Where's the dealing in that information from the New Age community? Where's the realization that that is an addiction? Where's all the self-love conversations about that? Why are we not talking about that in the New Age circles? This is why I address love so much, is because love is a weapon. Love is being used as a weapon. The shallow definition of love will save everything. Love heals everything. It's a superhero. What about the love of realizing that there's an intelligence behind inserting weapons and drugs into certain communities? What about the love of the people who are in those communities who are subjected to this ridiculous, not only horrible education system, but psychopathic education system that trains people to hate themselves? What about the love of exposing that information? The New Age communities have no word for that. They have no interest in addressing that. They box that up and say, well, people who are dealing with that are in that level of consciousness. Here's another prescription drug, and then they have to deal with that. We are on this world. We are in this level of thought, and we have moved on. So people who have been raised, just imagine an individual who is raised in a New Age community. Are they an evolved being? Is that what it is? That's what people are really believing right now. Say somebody who was born in Sedona, for example, is a New Age community. People who are born there and now they're an adult. You are just an evolved being because you were born in a so-called conscious community, because you don't have to deal with the shit that people are dealing with in Oakland and Los Angeles and New York, so on and so forth. You don't have to deal with that shit. So because why? Because your past self was evolved? Nah, fuck that. It makes no sense. You have highly evolved, highly vibrating beings who are born and raised in the inner cities, dealing with this shit, largely vibrating on a higher scale because they are not only dealing with this shit, but have expanded beyond this shit and have created modes and ways to heal this shit. These are the individuals, these are the teachings that are being poo-pooed and pushed to the side and invalidated by these so-called New Age teachers, these so-called higher consciousness individuals who are being promoted by people like Russell Brand and the New Age communities like the Super Soul Sunday bullshit that Oprah's pushing. This is why you have the Amazon Netflix version of consciousness. You have on Amazon Prime, you have an entire genre, an entire channel of what it looks like to be talking about conscious information. And then they enter in all this alien information, all that other stuff. The alien agenda is part of the New Age agenda because there's unanswered questions in there. It's all theories again, the same way. The alien agenda is part of the New Age agenda the same way you have theoretical perspectives dealing with the Big Bang and evolution theory and so on and so forth. You have emptiness there. They can sell you versions of guesswork and you'll buy it up because you have no other modes of information. You have no informative food coming from anywhere else. So as long as they are on a journey to expanding their intelligence, to expanding their perspectives of the universe, you will follow it because there's nobody else doing that on a massive scale. You'll just follow it. This is why these alien extraterrestrial perspectives of what's going on never come to any answers, never come to any conclusions, because there's money in keeping people on a leash. It's a mirror image of why the prescription drug criminals, the medical industry, doesn't heal anything. They need to keep you buying their shit for the rest of your life. Consciousness is being sold to the masses of people to a certain degree, to a certain vibration, because they can sell it to people for the rest of their lives. Why race is such a big issue in relation to consciousness and so on and so forth, these so-called higher thinking processes, is because dealing with racism is a form of healing. You can see this individually and just multiply that on a massive scale. From a political perspective, you have President Hoover, who said the biggest threat to the country is the unification of, or the unifying of, the Negro. He's talking about the original people, the Aboriginal people. The unifying of our people, the healing of our people is a biggest threat to the system. Why isn't the New Age talking about this? Why doesn't the New Age put that in the forefront of what's going on? Because the New Age is part of the old system. So the New Age is not only complicit in this behavior, it's an evolution of that old behavior. And just like psychological abuse is more dangerous than physical abuse, the nature of the New Age mindset is more destructive than the slavery times. It's because you have people who are not only enslaved right now, but who are now whipping and brutalizing their future generations. They don't have to whip you anymore because you're whipping yourself psychologically, spiritually, physically. You're whipping yourself. You're whipping your children. You're whipping your future generations. You're doing the work for them. And the New Age idea of expanding your consciousness is just a more complex version of whipping yourself and whipping your future generations, because you're creating broken foundations that will not only destroy you now, but will destroy your future generations. This is why the system has to reinforce this idea that things are so much better for us right now. Like, oh, it's not slavery anymore. Those things are so much better right now. Oh, there's an evolution of consciousness. Look at people are waking up. There's a woke movement. Black Lives Matter and all this other shit. You could drive down the freeway right now and you can see this is how far this shit goes. You're driving on the freeway out here in Oakland. There's these overpasses that have these gates on these overpasses. And every time you drive by, you see a new sign. Same font, same people doing the same thing. And what they're doing is they're constantly reinforcing the midstream observation of what's going on. So you'll see them talk about Black Lives Matter. You'll see them talk about stop Asian hate. You'll see them talk about stop global warming. All this shit that is manipulated by the system. You have people, and whether it's individuals who are working for this system putting up those signs or not, whether it's just individuals out there doing on their own, it doesn't matter because the work is being done. People are mind controlling themselves and mind controlling other people up to a certain degree, thinking that they are doing the work of expanding consciousness. And then there's this backlash that you get for even talking about this information that comes from this arrogance of mostly so-called white people who are proud of this expanding. They're proud of Stop Asian Hate. They're proud of Black Lives Matter. They're proud of their coexist bumper stickers. They're proud of that. And you're unappreciative if you're not proud of them for being proud of their expanding of consciousness. So they demonize you and they attack you. And this is why I said people who are supposed to be like on our side, they're comrades or so whatever it is, they're supposed to be working with you. No, the individuals who are talking about that, who are holding that perspective and who are down talking you because you're bringing up other perspectives, they are actually just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than the system itself, because they are responsible for holding back masses of people who are equipped to really start to expand their consciousness, and in a way that doesn't need prescription drugs, in a way that's not going to adopt another form of self-destruction. They're not going to jump into consciousness with a broken foundation. So people are defending these broken foundations because they never had a foundation to build on in the first place. And when they're defending those broken foundations, they look at you and they say, oh, well, look at your foundation. It's just built on racism and all this. That's old stuff. It's like, no, you haven't healed this information. You haven't healed this foundation. Our people haven't healed this information. How the fuck are we going to expand into a new form of consciousness if we haven't healed the information and the perspectives from the past? How can you move into the future without dealing with and addressing the past? How can you deal with the present moment if you haven't dealt with the past? This is the question I present to the so-called New Age communities. How could you be present and all this other stuff and in the moment and expand your consciousness and all this other shit, and you haven't even delved into healing, or at least entertaining the conversation of healing the past? You've stepped to the side. So you're not present in the moment. If you are present in the moment, you're present in the moment sitting cross-legged on a broken foundation.